Thanks, Kieran. So despite the extra 5 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and set a stopwatch just in case here. All right. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Peter Yu. I work for a company called Moltech. I'll actually introduce what our company does momentarily. But before that, just a couple words about myself. Whenever you're in an international city like Hong Kong, people always ask, where are you from? And I tell people I'm from Taiwan. And then, some people actually immediately start breaking it out in Taiwanese and say, oh yeah, I love Taiwan. And I love Taiwan too, but I actually don't tell people that I'm Taiwanese. I'm actually Chinese, but I was born in Taiwan because I don't speak Taiwanese. I grew up in the US, as you can tell from my accent. And the last 8 years, I've been in Hong Kong. So now I'm a PR, but unfortunately, I don't speak Cantonese because my brain only has enough capacity for 2 languages. Today, I wanted to talk about product strategy a little bit because I'm hoping to inspire folks to rethink what the whole digital revolution can do. Not just from, we saw how it could transform your business model. It could transform your supply chain. Obviously, it could, spur complete companies, startups that are very successful. But what about folks who, actually have been making a product for some time? What does it mean for you? Not just from a digital marketing standpoint, but actually changing your offering, whether it's a product or service. And of course, any company, that's a core aspect of your operations, what you offer to customers. Okay, so first I'll have a little bit of an introduction, and then I'll talk about some market trends. And market trends tend to also drive technology trends, so we'll touch on that. And then I'll show you some examples of how companies or even products that you may have thought were quite mundane have actually really modernized and transformed themselves because of digitalization. And I call that connecting the dots, okay? And we'll explain that more in a minute. And then finally, how that ties back to reinvigorating, revitalizing your products, okay? So I know most people probably have not heard about Moltech. It's a relatively older company. It's been around since the late 70s. And through acquisition, it actually, one of our businesses is a company that dates back to the 1950s and the Apollo missions back then. And currently still, we make circuits for the International Space Station, for stuff, things that go to Mars. So we're a PCB company. Today, that doesn't just necessarily mean what most of us think about when we envision what's inside of a computer and that big green board. It means a lot more when you think about IoT and wearables today, and I'll give you some examples in a minute. We're in a number of countries. We have factories in the U.S., Philippines, and China, and we're actually headquartered in Hong Kong. So that's one of the great things about being at this company is you get to have a global role based in Hong Kong as opposed to just an APAC role. And one of our differentiators is that we have R&D labs in Silicon Valley that can really work on, what the leading tech companies need today. Okay, VR companies, automotive, electronic, autonomous vehicle companies. You name it. And then we can do design for manufacturability in our R&D labs in China. Okay, so we can take something that's technically very demanding, make it buildable at scale, and then deliver it at low cost. We're actually owned by Flextronics, which is a publicly traded company, and I just wanted to say a couple of words about Flex. And this is really not meant to be advertising, okay? This is meant to be, I know that if you're here, you all like to learn about businesses, business models, companies, and at networking events, when you meet people working in different businesses, it's good to be able to relate to them and say something that about their industry. So this is probably a sleepy industry for most people. But Flextronics recently rebranded itself as Flex, okay? And traditionally it's known as a contract electronic manufacturer. It's $26 billion in annual revenue, USD. But, Flextronics has really gone beyond that. For example, it's a publicly known fact that not only does Flex build all the Fitbits, or most of the Fitbits, but Nike recently signed an agreement to outsource all their shoes, producing their shoes to Flex. So it's not, your PC or even your handset, which, by the way, Foxconn does a great job at, and they're probably Flex's biggest competitor. It's a lot more than that. It's stuff that traditionally you may not think is very electronic in nature. Flex is headquartered in San Jose. The link between Moltech and Flex is, if you recall from Timothy's presentation, there's sort of a vertical integration. So Moltech is at the very top end upstream in terms of the design of technology products. We work with our customers to design the right circuits so they get the results they want. And then Flex can actually then build it at scale, hire all the people, have the facilities, automate, make sure it's compliant, CSIR, et cetera, and deliver it. And, this is very important. We've actually helped a lot of startups get a tremendous pop during their IPO because, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to deliver so many units and have, so much sales going into, obviously, a very critical event for these young companies. Okay, so enough about that. Moltech serves all segments, all markets, as you can see. Basically anything that has an electronic, component or aspect to it. But more and more things are getting digitized, and I'll have some great examples of that later. So it's not just limited to these, these industries, if you will. Okay, so taking a step back, I just wanted to give everyone a quick understanding of PCBs if you don't know what they are. I think most of us think about these, green things, boards that go inside, computers, your automobile, et cetera, and those still exist. This is sort of the volume business. There are increasingly demanding requirements such as thermal management, power, heat dissipation, and so you have to, be on the leading edge of having features that absorb that. This is a depression here. It's called a coin, C-O-I-N, and that actually helps, that's a heat sink, okay? But beyond that, these days, especially due to the wearable trend, we have to make a lot of flexible circuits. Okay, these are things that won't break, under various conditions, that have to be twistable, bendable, that withstand, environmental volatility, and actually don't burn your skin and don't run out of battery so quickly. There's also rigid flex, so you combine sort of elements of both. There's large format, and the best known examples of these are solar panels, okay? There's printed electronics, so this really makes it quite applicable to wearable applications. And then, of course, there's a need to assemble these in a way that, doesn't break any, have any yield loss. So these are all the areas that, Moltech and our competitors would do in the PCB industry. This is not, oops, okay, sorry. So, in terms of market trends, if you look historically, from 1750s to 1850s, that was an industrial age. What really helped ring in the industrial age? That can anyone say what you think when you think industrial age? What was the biggest contribution to business? Sorry, steam engine. Okay, good, very good. Steam engine, and then automobiles, right? Mass production. Okay. And during that time, GDP basically grew 2x every 100 years on a global basis. Now, the modern age, which is more recent, and I was born barely in the modern age, by the way, GDP doubled every 40 years. And, this is really where a lot of other things started getting produced. Televisions, analog devices, things that needed mechanical engineering, but not electrical engineering necessarily. And then, of course, the information age, more recently, where the speed of, growth and economic productivity really accelerated, doubling every 25 years. And really today, we're in what we like to call the intelligence age, okay? So if you've attended some of yesterday and even Tuesday and Wednesday's digital strategy event, you would have heard people say things like the quantified self, machine learning, AI, right? This is where we are today, and things are going to get a lot faster, but there's going to be a lot more opportunity for everyone, incumbents and new entrants as well. So the intelligence age is defined by IoT, but I'm going to posit a different acronym for IoT, not the Internet of Things, but the intelligence of things. I think this is sort of the next evolution of the Internet of Things. It's really an ecosystem of smart connected devices that are going to change the way we live, work, and play, because they're going to deliver greater efficiencies, intelligence, and capabilities that many of us probably haven't even thought of yet, okay? So the potential is phenomenal. And, usually I spend a number of years in consulting, and, the thing that you always present when you have sort of a new trend or a new opportunity you want to convince clients to enter is you show them that it's large, it's growing, and your competitors are doing it, okay? So this is basically showing that it is large and growing, okay? Connected cars today, there's only about 23 million that have embedded connectivity. In 10 years, that's going to quintuple, okay? And it's a CAGR of over 20%. And it's not just about connectivity. Of course, we know electric vehicles, the ability to, be very environmentally friendly, and then also to relate that back to maybe your home electrical needs through electricity storage at home, as well as, of course, autonomous driving. So all of that is driving greater electronic content in what used to be just a mechanically engineered item like a car. So there's many more industries that are going to be revolutionized by the intelligence of things, and I won't bore you by going into each one, but you can, I think generally people can agree with these predictions from McKinsey. Okay, so what are some of the technology trends that are resulting from this? And how are they creating new opportunities? So I like this slide because we get to now actually talk about some real products that some of you are familiar with, I'm sure, and some of you would be hearing about the first time. So shifting markets really affect, all the areas from telecommunications, 5G. 5G isn't just a natural evolution from 3G to 4G to 5G. It will greatly enable things like autonomous driving. Your car, you don't want your car to be getting data back after the fact, after you've passed a point, after an accident has happened. You need that to be at the fastest speed possible. Wearables, cloud, mobile, healthcare, etc. So all of these are driving increasing demands on actually technology companies. Probably Brent can also comment on this next on behalf of Intel. But everything still needs to get smaller. It needs to be able to do more. Okay, so you got to pack, more circuits, more processing power in there, and of course faster. And by the way, I limited just to these three, but again, power consumption, heat dissipation, etc. And you read about it in the news all the time. Nanotechnology. Not only are we trying to apply it to the medical field, but now we're going to send micro spaceships into space, right? Probably just saw those articles within the week. So a lot of exciting new stuff. And it's really allowing, I would say, all of us to come up with breakthrough products. So take an industry like safety helmets that serve motorcycle riders. Okay, nowadays you have helmets that basically apply the whole Google Glass idea, that give you GPS directions. So, you won't get lost, that you can, take calls, you can see who's calling, decide whether you want to take the call or not. It's almost just like you're in a car, okay? So if you're a rider and you have a choice between a traditional helmet that meets all the safety requirements and a new one that also meets all the safety requirements but have these capabilities, which one are you going to choose? Especially if you're a millennial, right? So it's giving companies that are leading this a competitive advantage. Fitness watches, fitness bands, fitness watches. I think that's self-explanatory. Really contributes to quantified self. Self-driving electric vehicles. I don't think we need to name the company that's the leader here, but this is very exciting. It really can change our behavior. We can tell the car to take grandma out to the store to see her friends because otherwise she's bored at home. That sounds good, but actually maybe it'll add to congestion. So there's a lot of things to be worked out still. I think one of the other insurance industry speakers had also talked about the liability questions. So there's still a lot of things, there's still a lot of moving parts, if you will, for this. Wearable metronome. So I love this example. So how many of you have played a musical or learned a musical instrument before in your life? So you all know what a metronome is, right? It's that triangular wooden thing that ticks back and forth to give you a beat, because a human being cannot actually carry a consistent beat. Okay, and the metronome has not been innovated since the 1700s. Okay, so just a little bit after the Reformation. Okay, but these days there's actually a company called Soundbrenner. They've made a wearable metronome. You wear it on your arm. It constantly gives you a beat. Doesn't disrupt anyone else with that tick-tock sound. And it's great. It'll coach you on how you can perform better as a musician. But think about when you're in a band and your beat is synced up to everyone else who's also wearing it in your band. And then it's synchronized up to the laser light displays that's on stage. That would be quite a show, right? Audio, visual, everything. And this is a great example of taking something that has been around for a long time and really adding tremendous value through digital transformation. Diagnostic toothbrushes. I was telling Winnie from Colgate that Oral-B at the Mobile World Congress in February in Barcelona actually unveiled a diagnostic toothbrush, and that Colgate needs to do so too, quickly. Tells you, places that you miss, are you brushing enough? And I bet, my wife would like to get that for my son, because then, he can't make any excuses. So on and so forth. So another way to look at this is actually what the analysts predict will be the data needs and the growth in terms of mobile service provider revenue in the future due to wave, the third wave and the fourth wave, which is machine-to-machine and wearable and home automation, connected home. And really those will be the next wave of revenue opportunities for operators that make money off of data. Because, everyone already has multiple handsets today, and people already have, laptops and tablets. But it's not just that's going to be more growth, more revenue. It's going to be more profitable revenue. Those are going to be higher margin services than, the consumer stuff down here, because of things like autonomous driving, where you can't afford for margin of, lag, right? And it's going to help Facebook too. So literally, opportunity is all around us. You just have to connect the dots, because IDC predicts that by 2020, there'll be another 50 billion connected devices in the market, creating tremendous, over 7 trillion in addressable market value, okay? So how do we connect the dots, okay? I like to use this approach because I used to play a lot of chess in my young days, okay? Oops, so I'm taking too long. But, you know, some of the strategy behind chess is around pattern recognition, okay? And I think all of us have read about innovation and stuff. It's really about, you know, recognizing certain things and then maybe adding something, you know, a little bit more that really, you know, changes the mix, okay? There are different theories, but connecting the dots is also, if you're in a certain industry and then you take a look at what other industries are doing with respect to the technologies that they leverage, you could potentially come up with something really groundbreaking. So telecom 5G, we talked about that. There's going to be a lot of speed. Computing and PCBs, okay, I put that in there because you still need computers to some extent to calculate. Automobiles and sensors, you know, starting next year, or maybe it's already this year, all automobiles in the U.S. have to have backup camera. So it's got sensors, you know, there's huge growth if you follow any of the companies in this segment. And finally, energy and automation assembly is important for that industry. And what do you get when you connect the dots? You get autonomously driven electric vehicles, okay? Obviously, we all know it's changing the automobile industry. Another example, digital health, wearables. So actually, wearables now have evolved to, you know, be really quite, you know, thin and flexible, in such that they can be tattoos and patches. Mobile devices have been leveraging NFC, probably under leveraging NFC for many years. And then printing electronics is very helpful in the medical field. When you connect those, you basically can come up with these smart wearable patches that if you need to, it'll monitor your blood content and then dispense insulin to your body when it's low. Okay, so there's already a couple companies out there that make this kind of stuff. No more, you know, inconvenient pricking the finger, etc. Wearables, footwear. Yeah, I put 2 here: flexible circuits and automation. First off, flexible circuits. If you're going to put any circuit in your shoe, you don't want it to be rigid. I mean, just think about it, right? It has to, and once you put it in there, you want it to work basically forever, for the life of the shoe. So the robustness of the flexible circuit and the flexibility of that is very important. You don't want it to heat up. But at the same time, I mentioned Nike, right? And many people think, okay, Nike's working with Flex now because, you know, they see the wearable trend. They want to put a lot of more electronics in their shoes, and they do. Some of you may have seen the self-tying shoe that Nike has just, you know, started putting their videos out to market. That's cool. But you know what other big contributor is for Nike making this move? Now they don't have to deal with the headache of, you know, managing their supply chain. And specifically, when you think about factories either that they contract with or through their contractors are subcontracted, and you think about in the past few years how many global brands have been subjected to claims and lawsuits of violating child labor laws, of violating environmental law and compliance laws. Now they don't want to deal with that. And it's not just shifting the problem to Flex. We don't want to deal with that either. But through automation, you basically reduce the need for labor. And, you know, obviously that may not sound so good depending on your perspective, but it's a reality. You know, even in China, our company deals with this all the time. The cost of labor is getting higher and higher, and that's spreading to all Southeast Asian countries as well. So this is a major motivation for footwear manufacturers is actually to use more automation when they actually build their shoes. Software is very critical. So a lot of this stuff, you know, many of you may be tuning out because I'm in the software business. I don't actually make a physical product, but guess what? It's the yin and the yang. Okay, I spent 10 years at Oracle. Now I'm back at hardware, and I can tell you very clearly, big data needs IoT, etc. So you need a mobile app. If you're going to have if you have Fitbit, you need that app, right? And fitness assembly testing, very critical because, unlike maybe a luxury item that gets used occasionally, if you wear something to the gym, it's getting stressed, every other day of the week. When you combine all that, you get smart running shoes. And if I have time at the end, I'll play a video about this. Okay, so I think that's enough examples. I think we all agree we're in the digitalization era, and there's a lot of opportunities for you to rethink your product strategy. And really, just to underscore that, we all know Maslow's hierarchy, right? But really, it's different today, right? If you travel anywhere, first thing you do when you get to the restaurant is, what's your Wi-Fi, right? So we all die if we actually don't have the most fundamental needs, connectivity. Okay, benefits of digitizing products. I really looked forward to preparing this slide because, we get to talk shop amongst strategists in this event. So obviously you can turn products that have been underperforming to good products, okay, just by adding some electrical element. If you have a good product, you can extend the product life cycle, okay? So these are BCG, Booz invented frameworks. And then you can help launch new products using, for example, the adjacency map. This is from my former employer, Bain. And really, that gives you the differentiation. It really changes the game for your company and your industry, probably, and keeps you at the forefront. Okay, so this is just one of two technology enablers I wanted to introduce folks to. Ripstop is actually one of our IP products for flexible circuits. It's inside many of our wearables that we make for companies. And then NovaClad actually allows you to have tattoos. You can wear things on your skin. Okay, so that's another building block, if you will, to think about how can you change your products. And finally, not only should you understand, the opportunity and the trends, and maybe some of the enabling technologies that can help you get there, but I have to make a plug. You have to leverage partners who understand the technology, and especially partners who have participated across industries. Because remember, connecting the dots is really about looking at what other industries are doing and how that can relate back. And we've talked about the tech trends. We've talked about the product characteristics, and then basically a company like Moltech can help you make the journey to digitize your product. Okay. So in summary, the intelligence of things is changing the way we work and play. New market and technology trends are opening doors to many opportunities. Those who can connect the dots can gain breakthrough strategies. Digitalization reinvigorates products, but it does require creativity and know-how, right? And finally, using enabler technologies and experienced partners can make the difference. Okay, so I'll end here, and if we have more time during Q&A or something, I can play a 2-minute video. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you.